Hello, everyone, and welcome back to That's a Wrap podcast. Today, your hosts are Julian,
Jalen.
Yanni.
And nausea.
This week, we will be discussing a film called Princess Mononoke, which is a 1997 Japanese animated epic historical fantasy film. This film was written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki and animated by Studio Ghibli. And lastly,
Studio
produced
Ghibli.
by, say it again?
Studio Ghibli.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. And lastly, produced by Toshio Suzuki. This film was originally released in Japan on July 12th, 1997. And two years later, the movie was recreated in the United States with the release date of October 29th, 1999. So first, we're going to discuss and analyze the actors and casting of this film. So I'll go first. First was the main character, Ashitaki. His voiceover is by Billy Crudup. This is the English version, by the way. And he is the protagonist of the film. He is the last prince of the Imishi tribe who goes on a quest to cure his cursed arm before it lasts. Oh, and it lasts throughout the movie. And later in the movie, there's repercussions with this arm. Along his side is a traveling companion who is a red elk named Yaku. And he has throughout this film, we talk about it later in the psychological impact, but throughout this film, there were themes with the characters. And one of his themes was balance, and the balance between nature and nurture, and providing that humans and nature can coexist. And he had a large heart, and he did not want to hurt the forest or the people of Irontown if he did not have to. Now, regarding to the voiceover of Billy Crudup, he's an American actor who is well known in other movies such as Without Limit, Justice League, and etc. He's been nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Best Male Lead and received 2 Screen Actor Guild Awards. Next, I want to talk about San. San, her English voiceover is by Claire Danes. San is also known as the title of the film, Princess Mononoke. She is a human girl who was abandoned by her parents and raised by a wolf goddess named Moro. She is also the main character alongside with Ashitaki. Due to her upbringing, she acts, behaves, and resembles the life of a wolf. Little short story is that her family was roaming around in the forest of where Moro and the wolves family belonged, and their way of sacrificing their life was giving away the baby, thinking that the baby was going to get ate by the wolves. But in reality, the wolves ended up not eating who is San, and ended up raising her. So San's character is a metaphor of environmentalism and conservatism, and in like indifference of the last character, Ashitaki. And regarding to the voiceover, Dane, she was 20 at the time, but her acting career actually started at the age of 13. So she was well known in the acting community and being a voiceover and things such as that. With her most recent piece being in 2018, since she started her acting career, she has 4 Golden Globe Awards and has participated in other films such as Romeo and Juliet, Les Mis, and The Terminator 3, and so on. Sorry. Another character I want to touch over is Lady Ibashi. Her English voiceover is Minnie Driver. She is the main antagonist of Princess Mononoke. She's tough. She's an arrogant woman who wants to positively influence the world. She holds status of power, as in most leaders, and people wanting to follow her. Now, her theme is the face of humanity and technology and the progression of evolution and wanting things to be better for a human. in that mindset. And regarding to the voiceover, Minnie Driver, she's a British singer and actor and is most known for her work with voiceovers. Now, a lot of the next characters I'm going to discuss are more so, I wouldn't say they're necessarily the main characters, but they still played an important part for sure. So next is Jigo. In Jigo's first experience in the movie, he seemed as an ally of Ashitaki and pretends to be like a knowledgeable monk and wanting to help Ashitaki accomplish his personal goals of his cursed arm and things such as that, and figuring out what the problem is to save it. Therefore, Jigo provides information regarding to the forest spirit, but in reality, he was just trying to obtain credit for himself so that he could get paid off and he could get some money through that. All in all, his plan didn't go in his favor, which was shown later in the movie. Next, let's focus on Moro. Moro is the supporting character and the adoptive mom of Princess Mononoke, or San. As I said earlier, she is a goddess of a wolf. She is 300 years old, the god of the wolves, who possesses like a divine power and intelligence. Although Moro is a wolf, it is anime, so she's also a god, so she's capable of understanding and speaking like the human language. Moro is a strong character that holds power and is control, and with great understanding of human being, because she does have that crossover effect of being a god, but she does understand that humans do have evil intent. And despite her hatred for humans, she cares genuinely about San and views her as her own child, as she is the adoptive mom of the human. Next is Okoto. Lord Okoto is a blind old boar. He and his warriors had the intent on attacking the human side, which resulted in all the warriors dying, except himself, the Lord, but he got seriously injured, which later on there was repercussions. He turned into a demon, which later ended up resulting in his death from forest spirit. Now, I've mentioned forest spirit a few times, and this is the character we're going to focus on now. And forest spirit is also known as the protector of the cedar forest and the god of life and death. Due to it being a god, the character obtains abilities like immortality, invulnerability, power over life and death, and transform into a night walker at night. The head of the forest spirit plays a large role in the film, which was responsible for attaining events later in the film. But in conclusion, the head restores peace. Now, the forest spirits theme, as I talked on earlier with San and with Ashitaki, the forest spirit, her theme, or their theme, okay, yeah, is nature. They're the nature side and can be very and basically the representative of nature can be peaceful or it can be harmful depending on how you treat the environment around you. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more of nature versus nurture when it comes to the psychological effect. But basically when nature is brought into a concept, it's kind of like because of like how nice or how mean you can be to nature, it kind of comes back to the concept of karma. Or so if you're religious, in the Christianity world, they say you reap what you sow. But those are all the characters that I want to discuss. Now, we can't truly analyze a film without taking a careful look at the script. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Jalen?
Hi, y'all. So, regardless of if a film is live action or stop motion or even animated like Princess Mononoke, translating the script of a foreign film is pivotal in making sure that the message is reached across borders. So while some films like Parasite, for example, opt to just add subtitles rather than dub the entire movie, Miyazaki allowed for English adaptations of his films. And there's actually a bit of controversy with this particular Studio Ghibli film because as it comes down to the translations, the English author, Neil Gaiman, who wrote the script, didn't receive any credit. So though his name wasn't in the lights for the movie, he was able to encompass the movie from one language to another, and it still holds incredible gravity. One of the most impactful quotes from this movie is one from Princess herself, where she says, "Life is suffering, it is hard, the world is cursed, but still you find reasons to keep living." And like the narratives in this film transcend any one society or culture, especially as it relates to fighting for a cause that's close and dear to your heart, in this case, environmentalism and protecting the ecosystems and nature around us. And the lessons embedded in this film are deeply rooted in an issue that we face as a human race, which is destroying our planet and at what cost. And there's great disgust expressed for humans, as Morrow is always talking about how selfish and dissatisfactory humans are, with great disdain. And it's kind of like scary when he does it because it makes you look inward. It's very, it prompts an introspective analysis of yourself and of the way that you live, your carbon footprint, all of that. And then like another theme present is mortality and feeling. And that's exemplified by the quote, "The forest spirit gives life and takes it away. Life and death are his alone." So it kind of makes you think about how things are bigger than us. Like we're all just tiny pieces of this larger thing that we're all actively destroying. And Morrill also said, "The trees cry when they die, but you cannot hear them." And this kind of connects to the fact that we live aimlessly in connection to the world. So we're kind of focused on our own goals. And I think the way that it was translated, this wasn't lost at all. Like the messages that were meant to be conveyed through the Studio Ghibli film were accurately done so. And then one more quote that really stuck with me was, "These days, there are angry ghosts all around us, dead from wars, sickness, starvation, and nobody cares. So you say you're under a curse. So what? So's the whole damn world." So this was really like, this film was meant to be, I guess, palatable for the entire world to understand like the issues that we're all facing. And I guess like in a way that people will be engaged with it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the deeper meaning of the Lorax. But yeah, overall the script was successful in companionship with all the other aspects of the film. And considering that like a lot of time that films are dubbed or they have like English actors voicing the characters, the plot can be lost. This film was really, really impactful.
Thank you, Jalen, on your insight. It's much appreciated. Now that we've looked at the script, let's dive a little deeper into the setting and wardrobes and how those two concepts impacted the film. Siani?
Yes, so I've done costumes and setting before, but what was different this time is this is like a cartoon. So it's hard to like when I was looking at like I kind of like compared using like photos on Google, just compare like all the characters and like after watching the film, I just wanted to look at them like in still motion, and I noticed that this is kind of different from the other film that I talked about the costumes with, because these were like drawings, like these are animations. So it's kind of different for me analyzing that as opposed to like a live movie, so to say. So I noticed that the garments like were very fitting for the setting. This was set in Japan. I'll get more deep into the setting later, but it was like they had a lot of traditional Asian attire. You saw a lot of kimonos. You saw like people wearing tights. There were also some clothes that they looked at as though they were fabric, but they were draped onto the characters in a way that looked like actual clothes. It was a lot of organic fashion, incorporating materials that could be found in like the natural world. There was like a lot of face paint, but it was not actually face paint. Like it could have been blood smears. And there's also like natural stone jewelry. You can see around their necks they will wear, especially for those who were living in like the wilderness. There were a lot of like stone jewelry, but the jewelry was made out of teeth, and specifically like wolf teeth. We'll get more into that. So for San, which is Princess Mononoke, the Princess of the Spirits and Beasts, which is evident in an iconic outfit that a lot of people use when they're cosplaying, when trying to depict her. So because she was raised by wolves, it's evident in her dress, and she wears a hooded coat of like made of wolf hide and a dagger with a tooth of a wolf. And it looks like natural stone and feather jewelry pieces. And like I said before, like blood smears that mimic face paint. And she also has like a red mask, which mimics, like to me, it looked like a bug, some type of bug, but it was very fitting for the setting of being in the wilderness and being raised by wolves. So that was very fitting. For Ashitaka, I wanted to basically compare the difference between San and then Ashitaka because I feel like their dresses are two different things, and it really emphasizes the setting and two different ways of life. So for Ashitaka, he wears a blue kimono that looks like a blue kimono looking top. He has a bow and arrow, has a satchel, a bag full of arrows, and blue pants. Like I said before, like the pants tights type of thing. And Moto also wears similar garments as San. So as I said, like that ties into the setting because everyone else wears traditional Asian garments, aside from like those who are raised by wolves. They wear like I said, the traditional Asian garments, but this was set in the late Muromachi period of Japan. So I feel like this is why they look very traditional and what you would immediately think of if when you think of like Asian dress. And it makes sense that since Maro and San are associated with the wolves, the garments look as though they were fit to be in like the wilderness or to be in jungle or to be in like nature, because they are like nature inspired. They're actually wearing wolf hide. Like it really blends in with the scenery. And for characters who live like their regular human life, it makes sense that they will wear traditional garments that really encapsulate the ideas. And this is like, to me, this was like a contrast between the normal and the abnormal world of being raised by wolves and being a wolf god, and then being a normal human in those two different like ways of life. So that's what I thought of when I was thinking of how the setting and the costumes went with the overall themes and the overall ideas.
Thank you, Siani. Of course, every film incorporates some type of music to add effects. Can you tell us a little bit more on your thoughts about the music?
Yeah, definitely can. So first and foremost, soundtrack absolutely phenomenal. The director of this movie is Miyazaki, and the composer and producer is Joe Hisashi. And these two are like two peas in a pod. Like essentially any Studio Ghibli movie that Miyazaki's directing, he's gonna have Hisashi producing for it. I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan. Like all their other movies together, even besides Princess Mononoke, like Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Totoro, like they've worked together on all of them. So like I really enjoyed seeing how they worked on this one together. And as somebody mentioned earlier in this conversation, I think it might have been Julian, he said the American version came out like October 29th, 2000 or 1999. And that's actually my birthday. So like I've really grown up with this movie. Like when I was younger, I used to watch the dubbed version of this and Spirited Away. But now as I get older, like I'm watching the subbed versions more because I can appreciate it more in the culture and just the true meanings behind it. But yeah, so like I said, they've collaborated on plenty of soundtracks before. The soundtrack for this movie, it was 45 minutes long, and to give you a little perspective, the movie's about a little bit over 2 hours. So essentially, anywhere from a third to a half of the movie has soundtrack playing through it. So that really like is important in terms of setting tempo and plot progression. And then in terms of the soundtrack, out of like the 30 plus songs that are on there, only two of them are vocal tracks. And they were actually both written by the director Miyazaki as well. Cause like I said, even though he's not the main composer as the director, he still likes to take a hand in it when he's working with like I said, when he's working with Hisashi, because he knows that together they can make something better. And then the two vocal tracks were called the Tatara Woman Work Song and then the Princess Mononoke title song, which is sung in the Japanese version by Yoshikazu Mira and sung in the English version by Sasha Lazard. Personally, I prefer the Japanese, but I do still well. And like I said, 95% of the songs were more so instrumental, and they used the Tokyo City Philharmonic Orchestra conducted by Hiroshi Kumagi in order to like make all the pieces come together. And like throughout the movie, it's just constant use of like woodwinds, horns, percussions, like harps, things like that. Like the whole idea of this nature versus nurture thing that Julian was talking about, like it's really showing you like what it's like to be in nature. This whole like not fairy-esque, but like fantasy-esque type vibe that nature gives off. Excuse me. And like I said, like they use the woodwinds and the strings a lot to help create tempo in the film. Like when tension is starting to build or something's right around the corner, like you can tell the tempo starts to speed up. Like it's like kind of like in Tom and Jerry with like the chase scenes. Like you know, like okay, like based on what you hear, you know what's supposed to be going on. And then like even like the drums and the percussion, like when it's like the quote unquote like more war scenes, like when Mononoke is trying to like quell the tensions between humans and the beasts and the animals, like it's more like war drums because again at the in that time frame that's when they really used war drums, like when people were going to war, like you got to keep the your soldiers steady. So I thought that was really interesting. And it's like the music, it's very easy in my opinion for in movies for music to end up being a distraction as opposed to enhancing. And I think it was a very good choice of him to use majority non lyrical songs because like I said, since it's instrumental, it's not like you're distracted trying to listen to the lyrics. It's more so it's just you're focusing on the plot and it's a little bit of background music. And like I said, it just really sets the scene. And the opening song, I thought did a very good job. The titular song, the Princess Mononoke song, I thought that's one of my favorite songs in the movie because again, that's one of the only vocal ones. But also, like in my opinion, Studio Ghibli is essentially the Japanese equivalent to Disney when it comes to animated pictures. Like they're like the stamp of certification. Like they're really them. They do this. So like even the use of like the woodwinds in the beginning, like the strings in the intro of the movie, like it felt like a Disney movie. Like when you sit down, you see a little Pixar, like the lamp jumping and stuff like that. Like it felt like oh, like we're progressing. We're about to see something fantastical. Like it's about to be something very mystical. And then lastly, with the outro song, again, like I feel like they did a very good job because it feels like a very final note, like it feels kind of somber. Like it's like, oh, the movie's over, like you gotta part ways, like you've been invested for the last 2 hours, and it's kind of like, a somber type thing. Kind of like how you feel like when you finish binge watching a series or like any type of really long movie. It's just like I invested all this time and now it's over. It was over. So I thought really just overall it was really great film as all Studio Ghibli films are.
Thank you for your input, Kenny. Coming from a person that's seen it their first time, you can definitely tell that you've seen it before just by the passion that you speak about it. So that was very helpful. Thank you. Now, a film can't come together without editing in the camera, of course. So how did you think of that, Naja?
Yes, so given that this film was animated, obviously, like Siani was saying earlier, like couldn't compare it to like how, a live movie was. But as mentioned before, of course, it was created by Studio Ghibli and the director Hayao Miyazaki. It was composed of about 144,000 hand-drawn cells, which initially was looked down upon, and then 10% of the movie was CGI. So, but then overall, the film was revered as being different from other Japanese films. And then I wanted to highlight some of the powerful scenes and how they use like different angles to show the characters. So for example, the movie incorporated several close-ups. So like during the fighting scene with Lady Eboshi and the wolf girl, there were several close-ups on Lady Eboshi when Prince Ashitaka tried to intervene and to show her determination in trying to harm Prince Ashitaka. So of course, like when the close-up was showed for Lady Eboshi, it just helped to convey more of her emotion, her determination in trying to harm him. And even at the end of the film, when Prince Ashitaka had a powerful scene with San, discussing about how she hates humans, of course, those were also close-ups. And then it was also a close-up when she realized that herself, she was a human, that she was not a wolf, she is herself a human as well. So that was just a powerful scene in and of itself. I also wanted to talk about how the camera angles when showing the like beast type figures, like it just wanted to show like the ferocity of the beast. And so there were times where the camera was angled like above, I guess, it was angled above to show like how much the bloodshed it was from the beast. In the beginning, when the beast died, the camera was angled above. And then also towards the end, as I was talking about that scene with San and Prince Ashitaka, there was that camera was angled below to show like how big the beast was at the end. So those are just some of the aspects of the film in terms of the camera work.
Thank you, Naja. As we discussed all those aspects, they definitely contribute to the overall theme of the film. Plenty of the movies that we've watched throughout the semester, and including this one, they always reveal deeper themes and deeper meanings, and those that can show like a psychological impact throughout the film. And as we've all discussed on basically all of our parts, it's a large portion of nature versus nurture. I feel like we've been hearing this topic since we've been young. You hear it a lot in like Greek readings and things such as that, but it's just the spectrum of nature when it comes to the extreme position of empiricism. And then you have the other extreme side of the nature, and it's nativism. So it's, or if you're in the middle and you can see them both come together, and nature and humans can live a perfectly cohesive life, and they both benefit in their ways, and they can make it beautiful, and we can call it life. Or some that are, as Jalen touched on earlier, are how far will humans go? Do they have any remorse with nature and being able to collaborate with nature? Or are we going to be stingy individuals and just take what we want, and whatever we need, whatever we want, we take it? But then, as I discussed earlier, if we manipulate with nature so much, how will nature react back to humans being stingy? Whether, like I said, if that's you reap what you sow, or if that's considered karma, wherever you fall along the spectrum, I feel like throughout the movie, it was definitely a great representation of nature versus nurture, and that connected back to the metaphors of each person. And there was the balanced individual, as in Ashitaka. Ashitaka was the balanced individual. You had the forest spirit, that was for nature. And you also had the San. She was nature as well, but because she was human, she fell over to somewhat the middle as well. But then there was the extreme side of, what character was that? That was Lady Ibashi. So throughout the characters, you saw it back and forth of which side they were on, how far would they go, or how could they make a perfect marriage. And I felt like throughout the movie, that's what I saw with the psychological impact of nature versus nurture. Would anybody like to add on to that?
I would say I definitely have to agree. Like you said, literally since the dawn of time, the whole idea of nature versus nurture in our psychology classes, Greek classes, anything like that. And me personally, I think that nature plays a role, but I think nurture plays more of a role, me personally. But the main takeaway that I heard thematically, like psych impact wise, was this movie really made me think about the butterfly effect. And that's usually like used in terms of like to explain like why we can't time travel, because if you go back in time, you kill a butterfly, it could have all these extreme effects later down the line that we wouldn't know about. But in terms of this movie, it made me think about it because it's like it really shows like how like the smallest interaction can like really lead to the end. Like one or two humans does something in the forest, it has the whole forest ready to go to war, like, and really decimate everything. Like one or two humans starts not caring for the environment, everybody else starts not caring, and it does things like this. So it like this movie definitely made me think about like how the smallest things can have the biggest impact.
I think the movie helped to highlight kind of like how just like nature's perspective of it. Like as humans, we don't really recognize like our impact sometimes. And so of course this movie just kind of realized like, or helped you realize like, oh, the nature's, I guess, wrath in some type of way. And just how that affects the entire like cohesiveness of between like humans and nature.
Yes, I agree. And I'll also say, like, to me, it brought up the ideas, like, as humans, like, we could be so destructive and not realize, like, the outcomes of it and not realize, like, we don't, in real life, like, that happens in real life, like, if you don't treat nature well, like, for example, like global warming and stuff like that, like you will reap the benefit, like the repercussions of it. And I think this is just like a personification of that, and really shows how like humans don't really think about how destructive they are until they like experience like the backlash from it. So I feel like this is like a personification of it, and you can really see like that idea.
Yeah, I would have to agree. This movie definitely makes you think about how everything that you do impacts like yourself and also like the immediate as well as prolonged future, especially as it comes down to how we're going to progress as like a human race and as a society. And that's kind of a heavy thought to have. So I think it's interesting that this is an animated film targeted for children, you know, kind of like getting them thinking about this type of longevity at such a young age. And then like, as Kenny was saying, as you revisit it more and more, as you get older and as you mature, it definitely hits a little bit different. So this is a film that definitely grows on you and grows with you. And even though this is made decades ago, it still has like relevancy today.
All in all, I think the film went well. I think all the aspects that we touched on, it definitely, as a viewer, you were satisfied just because it was a good film, but also just breaking it down piece by piece. We had the ability to do that, and it was just made you think, and made you look at the larger picture. And just being able to just dissect a movie effectively is always nice. But unfortunately, the semester is coming to an end. So this is our last DPI. So this is the last time you'll see this amazing group of 5 individuals together. So just wanted to say farewell, and that's a wrap.